Welcome to the Look Good, Move Well podcast.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. We're in the new year here, recording episodes. You've likely heard at least one or two episodes from us that we recorded before the new year, but that released after 2023 began. But this is our first podcasting sit down since the new year. So Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
What did you do for New Year's Eve, Satya?
Went to bed early. My favorite thing to do.
Nice.
Yeah.
Slept right through the ball drop.
I woke up to fireworks briefly and then went right back to sleep.
You heard fireworks?
Yeah, I heard fireworks.
Where were they happening?
I guess somewhere in Fairfax because the sound from my town tends to travel up because I'm on a ridge.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep. Interesting. Yeah, we did not hear any fireworks. I don't think there were any fireworks. We were up in Napa Valley for New Year's Eve, and I actually stayed up until midnight for the first time
Go you.
in probably 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I broke my streak, unfortunately. Yeah. The consistency project died with our late night, but it was worth it.
Yep.
Hung out with some friends, some functional bodybuilders, and got drunk.
What were you drinking?
No,
what do you drink when you get drunk?
I actually didn't feel like I was drunk, but if you look at like the sum total of what I was ingesting from an alcohol perspective, I was not alcoholic. Alcohol perspective. I was definitely. Let's see. I had a glass of white wine when we got to dinner.
A white wine spritzer.
Then we bought a bottle of red to go with the main course, but I think Megan was already kind of tapped out, and I think I probably drank like half that bottle.
Mm-hmm. What kind of red?
It was a Chianti.
Ooh.
Which I actually chose, and everyone loved it. We were like, we didn't know what we wanted to drink, so they like sent out like the sommelier, and he was like thick, authentic, like Italian from like southern Italy, and he had like he was like northeast Italy, up by whatever what's the country that borders Italy, like in the northeast that's not Switzerland, or is Romania up there? I don't know, but anyway, he was kind of like, that was his region, but he was he had a very cool fancy jacket on, very cool, which Ryan, of course, Mr. Fashion, was like, hey, I love your jacket, and he was like, he appreciated that compliment more than we could have known. And then I got some type of tall skinny can tonic mixer thing at the grocery store for after dinner drinks. Had one of those. So that was it. Yeah. And I took sips of other people's cocktails, but anyway, that's like four drinks for me, which is enough, spread out over like 6 hours. So yeah, wasn't like I was pounding them. No shots, none of that.
No. You know what I like on New Year's is a French 75. That's like a really good choice.
Is it?
Yeah.
You want to tell everybody what that is? Because I'm guessing not everyone has any idea what that is.
It's gin, lemon juice, a little bit of powdered sugar. I think there's powdered sugar, some kind of sugar if not powdered, and you top it all off with champagne. Put one of those little lemon spiral twists in it as a little garnish.
All right.
Really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been a big cocktail kind of person. No. I feel like when there's too many ingredients in one drink, that's like, like the 5 ingredient rule that I use for meals drops down to like 1 or 2 for alcohol. Anything more than that, it gets a little.
I really like a nicely
crazy.
Crafted cocktail, like especially because I don't drink very much now. It's like that's a really nice special treat from time to time. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Anything to add to the banter before we dive in?
No, I'm ready.
All right. Me too.
Okay.
Please introduce us to the topic of the day.
Okay. This one's from Daisy. Thanks for writing in. And, I'm just going to paraphrase because I think I have it. Daisy is having an issue where she's very focused on her own health and longevity and doing all of the things that we recommend. Mobility, recovery, strength training, decent nutrition, good sleep. And then she'll encounter people who are older in their 60s and 70s and get a little bit of pushback sometimes. And they'll say, well, you can't do what you're doing now when you're my age. And they blame their pain, inflammation, stiffness, lack of mobility on age as a blanket statement rather than on their lifestyle choices and the way that they approach movement, weightlifting, nutrition, sleep, all of those things. And so she is wondering how to constructively have that kind of conversation with someone who may be unaware of what a dedicated fitness and health lifestyle can do for your longevity.
Man, so many things I thought about when you were talking about that, and just how many times that I've encountered that in my life, and that at different stages of life, how I've reacted to that, you know, with frustration, anger, defensiveness, to I'm going to try and fix everybody and change the world, to cool, you do you, to like, yeah, tell me more. Like, and then like, or like just inquire, be like, oh, tell me more. What's it like to feel like, what's it like to be 60? Like, what's it like to, you know, how does it feel to be on the decline? Like you're clearly declining. So what, you know, how's that feel? And like, not in a judgmental way, but just like, how's it feel? So kind of span the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think the early days of me being like frustrated, angry, and defensive was more like, I didn't trust in what I was doing. I didn't believe in, I was like, am I doing this wrong? Like, is this all going to come crashing down at some point? Like, is there an end to this where I can't see it, but they clearly can because they're older and wiser and have had more experience in life? And then, you know, years later, maybe building some more confidence and be like, I can fix you. You know, like somebody who says that, I immediately took that as an opportunity to be like, no, this is what you can do. Like, you can do this, you can do that. And realizing in many cases, they weren't interested in hearing what I had to say. So it was like falling on deaf ears, you know, or just like putting forth all this energy to try and help somebody overcome, you know, a information gap that they just didn't understand. I was like, no, if you just understand what I'm telling you, you will suddenly live a better life. Then to sort of getting to a place where it was like, yeah, okay, I can tell, like, you have a strong feeling. You don't believe like there's a better way. You're not asking me if there's a better way. You want to maybe cling to your like this belief that you are all wise and experienced to like maybe soothe yourself in this decline that you're experiencing, because you see me and you want to kind of like put a little, you know, damper on my feeling, I'm feeling high. It's kind of like, it's like a newborn parent, or like a parent of like, and I was guilty of this, but like, you're like, okay, I've been a parent for a little bit. I've been like sleep deprived, and like you see like the newlywed couple or this new couple who's pregnant, they're excited. I'm just like, just wait till y'all fucking sleep deprived, and like you just want to like, and they're like, dude, I gotta be like, it's like, no, we could potentially do this, and we could do it this way and do it that way, and it's like, shit, whatever.
Good luck with that.
Good luck with that. But then it's like, I get to experience this joy of being a parent that they don't have yet, even though I'm sleep deprived. It's like, well, there's trade-offs, whatever. Yeah. So yeah, I just moved through so many phases of that. And I think the before we get into like, even like, how do you have that constructive conversation or what's really going on? It's more like, does that constructive conversation, or does that conversation even deserve to happen now with that person? Like, and what are the cues that let you know they're ready to have that conversation? Or what follow-up questions could you ask? And should your assumption be that they want to have the conversation, or that they're even ready to hear what you have to say? And it's like, they may want to have the conversation, but you know that they're not ready to hear it, so you approach it differently. or you approach it with a different expectation. Because like you tell somebody a bunch of stuff, you feel confident about it, you want to help them, they don't take it in, you know, are you going to go and be upset and angry and mad that like they didn't? Or did you offer that up without any expectation in return from them? Like, I'm going to tell you everything I know, and if you use it, great. If you don't, great. Like, whatever. It's no skin off my back because I decided that I wanted to engage in this and share with you. And, you know, if you're a fitness professional, you're a coach, and you're like, go out and give a bunch of information to somebody for free and they're not paying you for your time, like you might get pissed that you're like, why did I just waste all my time on you, you know? Mm-hmm. Or they might pay you for that time. And then it's like, okay, that was the exchange. If they don't do it, it's on them, you know, or maybe it's a reflection of how good of a communicator you are and where you need to get better as a coach.
Yeah.
So I don't know what situation Daisy's in, but we can kind of make some assumptions or try some different scenarios. And have you encountered this too with like, you know, being maybe not the fitness coach, but you work in the fitness industry, you know, you're maybe, I know a lot of your friend circles are in the, you know, 40s, 50s, even 60s and maybe older. So what have you experienced with this?
Yeah, absolutely. I've thought about this a lot because I have several close friends who are actually in their late 70s right now. And I've watched them over the years. And it's funny because when we'd get together, there was a certain time when it just became very clear that whenever you get together with your friends, there's usually sort of a pattern to what you cover. It's like, oh, let's talk about this area of your life and that area of your life. And it was very clear that the main theme that everyone needed to talk about first and foremost was like all their body issues. Like, oh, this hurts and I'm aching here and I'm struggling with this thing. And that just became like, wow, like you all really have issues with your bodies, really and truly, that are very present in your day-to-day mental activity. Yeah. So I've always thought about, well, what is the right way for me to offer something or give something of value to them, even if they're not necessarily directly asking me. It's more like, this is happening to me. I know that you do strength. They're not really coming to me for advice, but they are aware that I operate much differently in my own approach to my body. So I think the thing I struggle with is I want to obviously help the people that I know that struggle with this as much as I can. And at the same time, I'm fully aware that there's a huge cultural lack of understanding of a lot of these principles. And the default that we tend to work with, at least in American culture, is when something hurts, you go to the doctor and they'll give you a pill or recommend a procedure. Typically, or maybe there's a little bit of physical therapy, but that's just something that you do for like a few weeks you do your band and you do your thing and then you're off. Like, it's not necessarily looked at as a way to live. And so I'm always I feel like I'm up against this huge tide that's really difficult to crack through. And then at the same time, I feel like the only way to start to change that is when we have more and more examples in our culture or just people who we know in our own circles who are doing it a little differently to point to and be like, oh, well, actually, like, you don't have to go to the doctor for that. Like, you can actually do this other thing.
Yes. Yeah. Man, it is definitely and it's a generational, like, kind of, I think the understanding of this is going to change with different generations, but, you know, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work now for like younger generations, but somebody who's like in their 70s, if they were raised in the 60s and the 70s, when we were a bit more active people, like lifestyle was different back then, and people moved a lot more. I mean, and that's, 50 years before that, people moved even more, and there's been clearly a decline in the amount of movement that people perform in their day-to-day life. But it's like, in the 60s and 70s, like, did you have to like actively take care of your body like all the time to like be healthy? Did you have to make an intention of movement and, building yourself up to basically offset like, or avoid, joint body deterioration? Like, maybe not as much. And, that really happened to people when they retired. Like, it's like they retired at 65 and then they basically stopped their daily activity of like getting up, going to work, maybe working a physical job, like, etc. And that's when the steep decline happened. Whereas now it's happening for people in like their 30s and their 40s, where it's like, hormones drop and like their youthful teenage and 20-year-old like hormonal production that keeps them recovering in their joints and their muscle mass, like being strong and somewhat built, like just dies. Like, and maybe it's even happening earlier in their 20s, where maybe teenagers are like not even ever moving because they got into different like activities and interests that were not movement related, more tech related or gaming related, things like that. And so, yeah, there's that to consider too. It's like, I'm in my 70s and you're telling me I've got to basically like, I've got to build my body up in the same way that I have been building up my, financial portfolio my whole life.
Right.
It's like, oh, you mean like I have to invest every month over month. I have to save a certain amount of my paycheck. I have to like,
check my balance, check my budget.
Yeah, you got to do all that, like, or the recommendation is like, do that, starting as early as possible so that when you get to retirement age, like you have financial health. And it's like, okay, so I got to retirement age. I didn't do any of that with my physical body. And now you're telling me I got to like start that now? Like what? Like, it's just not it's not the understanding,
Yeah.
So it can absolutely, and like, if you, again, to use the financial analogy, it's like, well, if you save, 10% of your paycheck every month from when you first start into the workforce, and you do that for 30 or 40 years, like, guess what? You're going to have a healthy retirement. That's kind of how the numbers shake out. And 10% in the bank, if you start early enough, it doesn't seem like that much. It's just, I'm putting in a little bit. But if you arrive at like retirement and you're like, okay, if you're going to make it now, like, you got to like we got to really fill this retirement bucket of, financially. Other, like we got to accelerate this process. You missed 30 years of like compounding interest. Like, we got to do a lot now. And it's, it can feel overwhelming. It's like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. How am I going to make this happen? Same thing in fitness. It's like you didn't do it for 30, 40 years. And now it's like, whoa, this is a monumental thing I've got to do. Or you see the person who's like doing this fitness thing in their 15th or 20th year. And you're like, whoa, that's crazy. It's like, well, I've just been compounding my, fitness investment for the last 25 years. So yeah, I can squat 350 pounds. Like, it's not like I'm going to break my joints. I got 25 years of building, resilience there. Just like the person who's got $1 million in their bank account at retirement. It's like, whoa, that's so much money. It's
right.
like, well, yeah, it was like $25 a month when I was a teenager. And then it was like $30 a month when I was in my 20s. And then I started, ramping that up to like investing maybe $1,000 a month. And now I'm a millionaire. Yeah. Look at that. Anyway, that's kind of like, I mean, if Daisy, if you're listening, if anyone's listening, these are just like, we're talking about this in a different context, but this is still like, how do you approach this conversation? At this point, I haven't even addressed like the physiology of this whole thing, aside from saying like, well, you put 20 years of small fitness investments, you can build up to a 350 pound squat. Like, that's some physiology. Everything else is just like frameworks to think about the investment into our bodies over time. And that's what people just generally don't understand, is that our bodies have to make investments into it over time. And that is what exercise or training and fitness is. It's, it could be a tool and a vehicle to get a six pack. It could be a tool and a vehicle to like perform better in a sport. Or if you really think about it as a longevity tool, then you're making little investments into your joint health, like
bone density,
like body composition. And I want you to talk about the thing you read on Active Life the other day, but basically all of this is you need to be making anybody who wants to like have this be a conversation. It's like, well, the number one investment you need to make is just getting stronger and continuing to be strong as you age.
Yes.
Like not cardio, not flexibility, not coordination, and these are the things that like people as they age think are the most important. It's like, I got to maintain good flexibility and mobility, and I've got to keep my cardiovascular health up, and I got to keep my coordination up, because as you get older, you lose coordination, right?
Yes.
It's like, fuck all that. Just be strong and all the other things fall into place. If you're strong, you'll be mobile. If you're strong, you will not fall over. If you're strong, you will be able to do the activities and you'll be more active. And if you're just moving more in your life, guess what? Your cardio is going to kind of get taken care of. And that's not just, the second on that list is cardiovascular, but I'm not like downplaying cardio as an important thing. I'm just saying strength trumps it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about this a minute ago in the kitchen, but I had seen a post on Instagram from Active Life, and the post was about how if you have tight muscles and you're always stretching them because they're so tight, then your body's actually just telling you either need to get stronger or you need to protect those muscles. And I just immediately thought of one of my friends who's in his late 70s, who was a client of functional bodybuilding at one point. And he always, to this day, struggles with tight muscles. He always says, I feel so tight. My muscles feel tight. And he's really dedicated to stretching all the time. And he stretches, I think, like every day, but he doesn't ever see an improvement. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what this post was saying, because it's such a mental barrier for my friend to take on the idea that strength is the answer. And I don't know if that's cultural or if that's because he's afraid he's going to hurt himself more because he feels very vulnerable in a lot of positions. And so it can be hard to know what the safest way to get stronger is if you're starting out in a vulnerable feeling place. But I think step one is just so important to show people that strength is really so key to all of this.
Yeah. And how do you show people that strength is so key? I think it means illustrating strength in a variety of different ways. Because good stretching is strength training. And I can break that down. It's like, if he's not feeling like he's ever getting any looser and he does stretching every day, then he's not doing effective stretching or mobility work, The mobility term has replaced the idea of flexibility as the thing that we should be seeking. Mobility is the combination of flexibility or, range or length of tissue along with strength and stability of tissues and joints. And so he might be stretching and trying to lengthen, but there's a serious lack of strength in the tissue, and then therefore nothing changes, right? If our brains are very, our nervous system is pretty, is well evolved to keep us safe. It's kind of like keep us alive, keep us safe. That's kind of the goal of like a lot of these automatic responses of the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system. It's like, the nervous system's not going to let you do something that is dangerous and going to hurt you. It's going to try and override whatever. I mean, you can try and override it with conscious thinking, but when you go into a stretch, you know, like, why do you stop at this point? Is it because that muscle tissue is not more elastic than that? No, it's not actually because that. It's because the muscle tissue beyond this length gets extremely weak because you've never trained strength characteristics there. Your nervous system's like, yeah, don't go there, because if you go there, I'm confident it's going to break. You're going to break, or something's going to break. So I'm going to turn on the antagonistic muscle. I'm going to turn on different components or parts of, you know, muscles, joints, soft tissue to stop you from being able to go there. You're going to get blocked. And we can't change that nervous system response without strength. So anyway, I got off on a bit of a tangent, a very granular, specific part of this discussion, but I think it does just come back and highlight that strength training and getting people strong is super important, and strength looks different. And that probably the standard image that pops up when people think of strength training is a lifting of weights to like exhaustion, you know, like very high intensity lifting. And that for somebody who's vulnerable and who's fragile is very off-putting. You know, if you're in pain or you feel stiff and your muscles are sore and tight and you don't have a lot of strength, you're struggling to walk up stairs with like energy and confidence. You know, the classic image of somebody deadlifting with multiple plates on the bar is like, no, you can't do strength training. That would break me. And the reality is it probably would break you. But that's not what strength training universally looks like. Strength training looks like, you know, learning how to basically move your body in space or move different parts of your body against very light resistance, or, you know, think of the concept of like banded, you know, resistance training, like using bands. Like bands are just really light weights. That's kind of why they appeal to a certain audience. It's like, I'm scared of heavy weights. And is that fear, is it warranted? In many cases, yes. Like, you should be afraid of lifting heavy weights, because if you lift them, you haven't built up a robust system to do it. Should you be afraid of the possibility of you lifting a heavy weight in the future? Certainly not. You know, but if you're you're inexperienced, uneducated, like strength trainee, you know, and you're here at the bottom of the, you know, strength spectrum, and you're like, I don't know how I'm ever going to get up to the heavy weights. Like, you have no idea how to connect those dots. That's why you hire a strength coach, just like you hire a financial coach to help you, you know, build wealth over time without you having to think about it all the time. You just go out and do your job and earn money, and then let them help you figure out how to. This is what you do with strength training. It's like, you just got to come in and do the work, but we can guide you on how to do that in a thoughtful way. Are all strength coaches like equally qualified to take somebody from 0 to 100 or 0 to 30 or whatever? No, they're not. Unfortunately, they're not. Just like all financial planners are not. Some want to rob you. Some want to freaking run Ponzi schemes. Some people, you know, like, you don't know. Yeah. And some people just tell you blatantly the wrong thing. Hey, invest in this. I'm so sorry that didn't pan out and your whole retirement's gone. Like, I'm really sorry. Like, oops. What? Like, yeah. So this is where so rein it in here for us.
Well, I was just going to ask as the final question. So say this person is in front of you, you're doing your thing, and your 60 to 70 plus year old friend says, oh, I can't do that. That would break me. You know, wait till you're my age. What do you say to them, to that person who is actually in pain?
you're absolutely right. There's no way you could do this right now. And I'd be happy to have this chat with you when I'm 60. I'd love to come back to it in 22 years, if you're still alive. But you're probably not going to be, because you're weak. And if you want to live long enough to have this conversation when I'm 60, I invite you to rethink your assumptions about strength training. No, I'm not having that. That's not how I'm
They are
approach it.
not sending you a Christmas card.
Yeah. It's that conversation is, I feel so confident because I'm armed with so many tools and so many ways of approaching it.
Yeah.
But I would start by saying, hey, if you're Daisy, you could definitely try and just be in that person's shoes for a moment and be like, think about how it must feel to really believe you can't make progress, or that you can't do this thing. And maybe inquire, like, hey, how does it, I hear what you're saying. And you know what? Like, you're older and wiser than me in many ways, and I don't know. I believe I'm doing the right thing for me, and that I'm going to try and do this for the rest of my life. But what's it like to feel the way that you feel? Like, are you nervous about that? Are you scared? Are you in acceptance mode? Like, is this okay that you can't strength train, or that it would hurt you, or that, and is there anything that you want differently that you're not able to do right now, or that you believe you can't do?
Yeah.
And then just wait and listen to what they have to say. Because there may be a vulnerable moment where they say, like, yeah, I'm actually, like, it really bothers me that, like, I'm hurting and I can't do the strength training thing, and I can't get stronger, and that I might just be, like, gonna get worse forever. And you say, well, I don't know everything, and I'm not, I know some things, and I believe deeply in what I'm doing. And I think there's a way that you could approach this differently. It's like, strength training the way I'm doing it today doesn't have to look like how you approach it. And if Daisy is interested in actually, like, helping facilitate this person getting stronger, you could offer, like, hey, I'd love to explore this with you and help, and maybe, be a guide if that's what you're looking for. If not, then I really feel for the place that you're at, and I know that it must be hard and scary to think that the next 20 years of your life, maybe the last 20 years of your life, you might not have the body that you want to have. But I feel really strongly that there's a better way. And I know a lot of people your age who are proving that all the time, and they've started in their 60s, and they're thriving. So if you're open to it, let's give it a shot. Here's a sled, walk backwards for a mile. Mm-hmm. Something, get them started on something simple.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Sounds good.
All right. As always, everyone, please send us your questions and topics that you'd love for us to cover. We're getting a full year ahead of us with 100% of your questions being podcast topics starting today.
Yeah, I'm pumped for it.
And send in the banter questions, or the icebreaker questions that you guys want us to do.
Anything you want to know.
Anything you want to know.
We are open books.
Have a good one. Take care.
See ya.